All right.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to episode number 3 of The
The
Balanced
Balanced
Besties.
Besties.
We are excited y'all are here. We appreciate you coming back to our new to us podcast, and we hope you've enjoyed the first few episodes. Now that we've kind of got some of the introductions and things out of the way, we're going to start diving into a little bit more detail on different topics and whatnot, starting with how we approach health. But first, I want to say, how are you? You just went to the beach.
I went to the beach. I went to the Oregon coast, which is my favorite. For anybody that doesn't know, I live in like the Seattle Tacoma area, and my favorite getaway, staycation kind of getaway, is the Oregon coast. I just love going down to like Cannon Beach. We stay in Seaside usually because it's cheaper, and then we go into Cannon Beach. But we were like, oh my gosh, for the end of January, which is when we're recording this right now. It was so we got there Wednesday, and Thursday was like the most beautiful day down there. It was so sunny, and like you would have thought it was, early summer or something. I mean, it was warm for this time of year. It definitely wasn't warm. It was like 55 degrees or something, but it was so beautiful. And took the kite out, and my mom's dollar store kite.
Nice.
Yeah. If anybody wants to know, you can get a dollar store kite, and it actually does work. And you don't feel bad when it rips, and you can just throw it away. And we went on like one little trail, and we found a new state park. Oregon has the best state parks. I'm just saying, like, if you live in the Pacific Northwest, like I just bypass the Washington coast now. Just go straight past it, and I go to the Oregon coast because it's so beautiful.
It is.
It's
so
beautiful. The beaches are well maintained, and I like their parks. Like, they always have nice bathrooms. That's very important. And yeah, it was a good time. We just got back yesterday, and always hard to recover coming back from having a few days of not having much responsibility or anything, and getting back into the the role of things.
Definitely.
So yeah. What about you?
We're still working on home renovations. Hopefully be able to move in, which was not our original plan to move into this house, but we're going to do it for a little bit. Move in next weekend. So about 6 or 7 days away from hopefully being able to move in. So it's been working on it for just over a month. So we've been trucking every day, and I know the kids are getting tired of the back and forth, but.
So you're going to have to truck it over to this side of the mountains, because you're over in Eastern Washington.
Yep. We're in Eastern Washington.
So you got to truck it over and get your stuff, and then.
Oh no, all our stuff's over here.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we already, after we stopped traveling, we planned to move on this side of the mountains anyway. So we got our storage unit over here for our stuff. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're only about 3 or 4 miles from it at this house.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm like, shoot, if you need some helping hands, I'll come over. I'm due to come over there. I just don't want to go through the pass. That's my only thing. I don't want to drive through the pass.
Nobody likes to drive over the mountain pass in the wintertime. It's not the most fun.
It is not for me. And depending on the person, I am not that person. You don't want me driving through the mountain pass. I'm a good driver, but not in snow.
Yeah. Not a lot of Washingtonians are.
Right.
From the west side, at least. So
no, not our thing.
All right. Did you have something new you wanted to share today? You've been digging. Something new you learned?
Something new I learned. I kind of just want to. I feel like I just want to share random. This is what I really, really want to talk about, but I feel like it's in a whole nother episode. And I've mentioned this to you before. Man, I've been going through this. I had my copper IUD taken out. Mm-hmm. A couple months ago, and it's been enlightening.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, like,
episode
is a whole episode, right? We have some things to talk about with birth control and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
That's probably like the main thing that has been like a huge thing for me lately. And most recent, I've been waiting to say it until I was for sure, but I'm almost totally for sure that my hair has stopped falling out.
Really?
So yeah. That's good. Yeah, but we need to talk about that on a whole nother episode. Yes. I do want to mention one thing I was thinking about, we could talk totally off topic, absolutely 100% off topic. But this whole like, yeah, and this is gonna be, when we post this eventually, it's not gonna be relevant anymore. Everybody will be like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But like this whole GameStop thing going on.
Oh, you have no idea, Jessica, because we had GameStop. All of
Oh,
us.
did you?
Yes.
Oh,
We had a
did
lot.
you know about this going on?
Oh yeah. No, we were right in the
Oh.
middle. Kellen was like trying to sell. Well,
But did you know beforehand? Were you part of the Reddit and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because Kellen had GameStop and he has some other stuff too. And we bought it at like $13 or $15 a share or whatever. So we came out really well on top. We didn't hit it at the high point when we sold.
When did you sell? What was it at?
We sold at like 250, I think.
Nice. Because it got up to what, 350?
Yeah, 350 almost. It was all close to 400. And whatnot. But yeah, it was like when they shut it down last week, we were like, are you freaking kidding me? This is
so terrible.
So bogus.
This is how we can make it relevant, right? We can talk about censoring and the like big tech like taking over the world. And
I heard that the White House had called them and the White House was like, you need to shut this down. It's like, you want to talk about hypocrisy and with the government and all that stuff. It's so bad. So there's still a lot going on. A lot of talk behind the scenes. So I'll be curious to see how this plays out over the next year.
Yeah, this is big. And it was so weird for me because I'm at the beach and I had started reading things that were like someone had posted about it on like Instagram or something. I was like, what are they talking about? And then I saw something again, like shortly after. I'm like, what is going on? And like, what? This must be something important. And then like it just over the course of like just a couple hours, it was everywhere. I'm like, what is happening around here?
I'm hoping that this opens people's eyes to realize like how corrupt things can be. And if you think that the government's looking out for the little people, they're not, right?
No,
like they were just trying to stop the bleeding of the hedge funds.
Yep.
And, it's interesting. I'll be curious to see what happens. I know there's already some investigations going on and lawsuits and whatnot, but
I don't know. I've been saying for a while, and I knew it wasn't ever going to happen, but I've been saying like, if we could just get rid of the stock market, because it's all BS. It's like playing with monopoly money. It's like it's not real. They just made like this weird world where you can basically bet on stuff without even real money.
Although we made a lot of money last year in the stock market, so.
No, I know. You're like, no, Justin, no.
I'm like super close to getting Kellen retired, so.
I mean, yeah, if you play your cards right, it can benefit you for sure. But I just feel like it's such a, I don't know. It's, if you really stop and think about it, it's just this man-made creation that holds no real value.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It is, especially, and I hope that the GameStop things makes people realize, because the way that the shorts worked and everything, there was more in there than they actually have available for that stock. Like people were trading more shares than are actually available. So it's just like fake. Yeah. It's crazy.
And that's where like, I get it, but like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand how that's possible, but I get it.
It took me a while to get it. Like 75 different explanations. So
right. I'll just believe you. I mean, I see it, but oh man, that stuff was crazy.
Yep.
Did you have anything you had going on you wanted to share?
I did. I wanted to share a new podcast with you. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. Not as many as I used to when I used to go to the gym, because I would bust out like 5 or 6 podcasts at the gym. But I just found a new one. It's called What They Aren't Telling You. And it's with Melissa Floyd, and she does a different podcast with Dr. Sears that we will talk about at another time. But she started this podcast last year, What They Aren't Telling You. And it's her interviewing people from different walks of life, things that aren't getting shared in the mainstream media, different perspectives that we aren't typically getting shared. And I just started listening to it yesterday. I listened to an episode with a Black conservative gentleman. And so it was really interesting. So it's good. So she's interviewing a lot of people, different approaches, different topics, things as far as politics and health and the world, economy, things that are going on in the world, that kind of thing. So far, so good. I'm digging it.
Yeah, I love that. And we've talked about this before, and you definitely are a huge advocate of it and social media too. It's important to get like that different perspective. And if you look back how much we've changed our minds on things
Yep.
over time as we've been enlightened to new information and been more open to hearing other things, I've completely done almost a total 180 on some of my perspectives on things
Same.
recently.
Yeah.
And you can't do that without being willing to hear some of these other sides and be open to, I don't know, different mindsets and even different ways of living and all of that.
Yeah.
You know, I think back on you know, that show that was big for a while, Wife Swap.
Mm-hmm.
And they always took two very extremes.
Yes.
And it was always like the unschooler and like the militant, you know, family or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think about it, I'm like, you know, that long ago, it was probably 15 years ago that show was really popular. Unschooling was like not heard of. That was like the most bizarre thing
Yeah.
to think that somebody unschooled. And now it's becoming relatively
Oh yeah. I know a lot of unschoolers.
yeah. And so it's not that foreign anymore.
Ben
But
Greenfield, he's a big health and wellness guy and podcaster. He has twin boys that are in 6th, 7th grade, and he unschools them. He pulled them out of school at 5th grade, and they started unschooling them. And he's talked about it on his podcast multiple times. He's interviewed them. He's interviewed his wife. You know, just talking about how they do their unschool and their schedule and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, so that was one. I also always think there was this episode that totally I couldn't imagine watching it with my mom because she would totally freak out. But like, there was a family that ate like they ate everything raw, and like they butchered their own chickens on their farm, and they ate raw chicken, like they didn't cook it. So super crazy, right?
yeah.
Totally grossed me out. But you know what? You know how many people I follow now that are raw carnivore
Really?
people? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've almost posted, like, there's this guy, he's been doing it for a couple months now, but he did a video of himself. He's like, watch me eat a whole chicken raw. And he just starts eating a raw chicken.
Wow.
I'm like, I did raw steak. I took a bite of raw liver, but I don't know if I would ever be able to bring myself to eat raw chicken. There's just something, we've created this mental block that like, chicken is dirty and like you're gonna get sick if you don't cook it all the way through.
Right. Salmonella
But
and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, but you know, the premise being, if you think about it, like we're the only animal that cooks their meat.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're killing all those enzymes and all the good stuff, and you know, like some very vital nutrients, they are less available. You basically cook them out when you cook your meat. So yeah, I know a lot. I follow quite a few people that eat a raw meat diet. So like that's another trend that's coming.
It is.
That, like,
I think I could get that far, but
I know I can't figure out if I will or not. Like I would have never thought. Huh?
I like the taste of cooked meat. So
yeah, but you know what? It, like everything else, I think what happens is when you start eating like that, like I listened to the Carnivore MD, right?
Yes,
Dr. Paul Saladino. And he said he hated liver at first. Like it made him gag. And I'm like, oh, that makes me feel so much better because I cannot stand the taste of liver. Now he goes around and like carries raw liver with him everywhere he goes and like feeds it to people. Like
so Kellen ended up buying this liver jerky. It's kind of like he bought like a month's supply of it or whatever. And I can't remember, Carnivore Aurelius. That's where it's from. And he's like, I'm not going to dig the liver because Travis, well, it's funny. His best friend had been eating liver. He's like, man, I tried to muscle down like 6 ounces of liver. He's like, dude, you do not need that much liver. If you're eating liver, you need like a tiny amount of liver. Travis is sitting here trying to muscle down
maybe, at most in a day, but yeah.
So Kellen ended up getting this liver jerky, and both Travis and I are like, nope, can't do it. Kellen's like, he's like, I'm used to it now, but I just can't. The aftertaste just kills me. I'm like, sorry, man, it's all you.
I've tried liver a few different times, and
that was my Nana's favorite food, liver and onions. That was her favorite.
You know how many older people, like almost every older person I come across, are like, oh, I love liver and onions. Yes. I'm like, I don't know how.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, I have figured out I can hide liver and cheeseburgers, and I'm sure other things that use like ground beef.
Yeah.
But Charlie loves her cheeseburgers with liver in it. And and actually I'll eat it too, and I don't mind it at all. Like it's fine when it's mixed in, and I do like 3 pounds of meat and then like probably 4 ounces of liver. I don't know. Something like that.
That's a good way to segue into our topic for today.
It is.
Talking about how we approach health, right?
Yeah.
And even though Jessica and I are very similar in our beliefs and our philosophies around health and wellness and fitness and all that kind of stuff, mindset, we do have differences.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances in this arena.
Exactly. There's a lot. Yeah. And so I thought it would be a good topic. We thought it would be a good topic for us today to talk about kind of like how she approaches health and wellness and how I approach health and wellness, so that you guys can kind of get a good idea of just kind of like a little bit more about what we're about, since health and wellness, it's such a broad topic and there's so many things that fit into that. But just kind of like how we approach, I guess, a general health and wellness that everybody can relate to, right? On like a general level.
Maybe. I don't know. Have you experienced this? I feel like everybody I come across that I kind of tell them that I'm a, functional nutritional therapy practitioner, and they go, oh, they assume that like I'm a vegetarian. Do you get that a lot? Like if I say I'm very,
I don't think they know what it means. I don't think people understand it.
I
you're
feel
a
like
therapist.
Yeah, well, so if I said all that, right? But if I just say I'm into health and wellness, or I eat really healthy, let's say that. If I say I eat really healthy, they would be like, oh, so you don't eat meat? I was like, no, I probably eat more meat than anything else. Like, you know? But I feel like that's kind of like the general, like, I feel like if you get to that very, someone who's not in that world at all, their assumption is that like eating healthy is all about eating salads. And that's not, if you ask me, no. And in fact, I tell people, I'm like, what you probably think I eat, I probably eat like everything you think I don't eat, is probably what I eat the most of.
Right. Like the opposite of what people would think.
Totally. Yeah. Because mainstream, if you ask me, has led us so far astray from what is. Oh yeah. Well, and I don't understand how people still follow these recommendations of low fat, no sodium, minimum animal meats and stuff like that.
Lots of grains. Do they still
continue to follow that? But you look around, you're like, how has this worked out for our American population? It hasn't. It's not working, guys.
Exactly.
So you got to take a step back and think about, okay, well, how did people eat 200 years ago? They weren't plagued with all of these illnesses. Even 3 decades ago, it wasn't like this, right?
Yep.
So starting this conversation, do you want to give some of your...
Yeah. So I just kind of want to give you guys a high level, really, really high level. We'll dive deep into some of these topics and some of these other things more specifically in a later podcast. But I just want to give you kind of an overview, a general, how I approach health and wellness. So number one for me, it's eating whole foods. And that doesn't mean the grocery store, which is really funny because every time I try to type in whole foods, like trying to tell people to eat whole foods, it autocorrects it to capitalize whole foods, like the store. It's like, no, just eat whole foods, eat, you
gotta do the real whole foods, right? Maybe that'll help it out.
I know, right?
Whole real food.
And whole foods is things like grass-fed meat. So grass-fed beef, free range chicken, heritage pork. So if you're going to eat meat, you're going to eat it as healthy as possible. It's grass-fed. It's not CAFO, which is conventional farmed meat. It's not chickens raised in these tiny boxes inside a coop. It's not poor pig meat and whatnot. So we do.
Can we get into a little bit of why it's important to get the pastured meats? Just real quickly, can you brush over that?
Well, oh my gosh, Jessica, this is a whole nother podcast topic.
I know it is, but I just want to make sure, because we might have some people listening that have no idea.
Wagyu beef is a sick cow, which is funny because they sell it for a fortune, but it is a sick cow. And I hate to tell people that because they're like, oh yeah, Wagyu or whatever the other meats are that are supposed to be really, really great because they're really, really fatty. So what they do with conventional farming is really, and here's the thing. Most cows, even conventionally farmed cows, are going to spend a majority of their life on pasture land. They bring them into the pens that you see a lot of times in documentaries or in the Midwest or that sort of thing. They bring them into the pens for the last like 15% or whatever of their life to fatten them up because Americans have become so used to fattier meat that that's what sells. They want that marbleization. They want that marble meat.
Well, it tastes good. I don't disagree. It tastes
good, right?
delicious.
It does. Yeah. It tastes good, but that's where the cow gets sick. They pump them with a lot of antibiotics and things like that to keep them healthy while they're in those smaller confined places. And that's where they feed them a lot of the grains at the end too. So they'll be grass-fed, grass finished, which is they're just fully grass-fed cows. There's grass-fed grain finished. And then there's like CAFO, which is conventionally farmed meat. But that's what it is. I mean, in a simple 30-second, minute-long blip is they live most of their life on pasture land and then they bring them in to fatten them up because that's what people like. So when I say grass-fed meat, it's organic grass-fed meat, cows that have lived their entire life in a pasture, roaming around like they did hundreds of years ago when the cows in Buffalo roamed free across the plains of America, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with like free range chickens, or free range eggs. If you go to the grocery store, you want to find local free range eggs as much as possible because those are chickens that are walking around. They're not just stuck in one of those boxes. And cage free is not good. Don't get cage free either because that's just a chicken in one of those boxes, not in a cage. So it's actually almost worse because then they just attack each other and it's just.
Yeah, you gotta get those pasture raised. It's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference in the quality of the food that you're getting.
Yeah, and you can actually, eggs are a great example because you can literally see the difference. If you take a standard egg from the grocery store and crack it open and you look at it as compared to a pasture raised egg, the color of the yolk and the texture of the whites are completely different. It's just a healthier egg. And where the big difference is you get better minerals in that yolk. You also are getting a better balanced fatty acid profile. So these standard meats that you get or the CAFO meats, the fatty acid profile leans way more to the omega-6s, which creates inflammation.
If you get fattening them up with grains, right? They're giving them fatter. So then the meat of the cow is then not as healthy as it would be if it was just eating grass, which is what it's meant to eat.
Exactly. And just think about that for a minute too. They take these cows and they fatten them up with grains. Like, does that really sound like that's a healthy thing for someone to eat? Is an animal that's just been fattened up with a bunch of food that they're not supposed to eat? And then also, what does that say about, we won't get into this right now, but what does that say about grains? I just want to put that little seed out there.
Well, and you can even see it too. I shared something, I don't know if it was to my Facebook stories or Instagram stories a couple weeks ago. It was a picture of one of the grass-fed steaks we had and then a steak that Kellen had bought at the store. And it was the difference in the color. The grass-fed steak was a lot richer, darker red color than the conventionally fed steak that we bought at the store. So you can just see, looking at them side by side before they're cooked, that they look completely different too. And it's, excuse me, so interesting to see just how feeding an animal different, how its insides look, right? Like how its meat turns out. And the same thing, I mean, the same thing goes for us, obviously, which is another story.
And if you want to talk about colors of meats too, they add color to meats.
Yeah.
Start paying attention to that. Like there's, especially fish, it's really obvious, but I think they add color to like beef as well to make it more appealing, visually appealing. But fish for sure. You buy salmon, farm-raised salmon, it's like gray colored. It's gray, and they add red color to it to make it more visually appealing. So just think about that.
Things for people to think about. So for us, so eating whole foods, so things like that, certain vegetables. And I say certain vegetables because not everybody can eat all the vegetables that are out there, right? Like my mom can't eat nightshade vegetables because she has psoriasis and it makes her psoriasis flare. So she doesn't eat nightshade vegetables. My dad could not eat cucumbers. So thinking that all vegetables are healthy or made for people, which is a whole nother topic as well. We could talk about another podcast, but so I say certain vegetables because we as a family only eat certain vegetables. limit your sugar. This year, the food pyramid guidelines were up for renewal again. They renew them every 4 years or 5 years? Every 5 years, I
I'm not
think.
sure how often. I just know it
Um,
did come out this
I
year.
think it's every 4 years or 5 years. And they didn't reduce the amount of sugar. They kept it at 10%. And scientists had said, hey, we need to reduce this to 6% added sugar. And they said, no, there's not enough evidence out there to support that 10% isn't a good guideline. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Look across America. Look across
Yeah,
America. And you're
pretty sure we have some evidence out there.
yeah, pretty sure that there's enough evidence to show that you should reduce the
How's diabetes doing right now in the population?
right? So
Yeah.
limit your sugar intake and try to keep it to natural sugars. So things like honey or maple syrup, right? Those are natural sugars that we use a lot of in our house, bake with those, that sort of thing. If you're buying packaged foods, and I know there's a lot of families and people that are like starting their journey and they're like, I still just need some convenience, right? And I'm like, cool, okay, I get that. Try to limit it to 5 ingredients or less. And those 5 ingredients are things that you know what they are. You can pronounce them. If there's a 15-letter word in there and you have no idea what it is, it's probably not good. So I wouldn't buy that packaged product. So I say if you need to buy packaged products, 5 ingredients or less, all of which you can pronounce. Fat is good. Another topic, I think we need an entire podcast on fat. Fat is good. It is not bad as long as you're eating the right kind of fats, which is things like grass-fed butter. So that's butter from grass-fed cows, ghee, lard. Lard was like a bad word when we were kids, right? Because that was when low fat kind of came out and they're like, lard, that's terrible. But no, it's not. It's actually really, really good and really, really healthy for you.
Yeah.
Our bodies need fat for fuel. Our brains are mostly fat. So you start depriving your body of fat, you're depriving your brain of fat, which is what it needs to function in its optimal.
Basically, all of our cells throughout our whole body use fats.
They do.
To transfer nutrients, there's fat soluble nutrients that you cannot absorb without fats. I mean, it's our hormones are built off of fats. So this whole dogma against fats, and they kept calling out saturated fats, but if you really, really dig into the science of it, it's not saturated fats. And don't blame the butter for what the bread did, like
exactly. A lot of the studies you'll see, and we could get into this too, at some point, a lot of studies you see about like meat and fat and that sort of thing, they're not using the right population to use these studies. They're saying, oh, people that eat meat are unhealthy. Well, those are people that are eating your McDonald's cheeseburgers and they're eating fat or meat and fat with a lot of grains as well. And you put those two together and that's not a good recipe, right? Like you were just saying, like adding those grains in is really not, and you're making a huge portion of your meal a grain, right? A lot of people do. Like that's not going to really work super well with the meat and the fat and that sort of thing. So then that's kind of just a general high level for food and how kind of we approach food as a family. Exercise. And I always tell people, I'll add one more thing in here in a second, but exercise at least 3 to 4 days a week if you can. And it can be anything. Find what works for you. And this goes for food, this goes for how you live your life, everything. There is no one right reason or way to do everything, right? Like what works for me is not going to work for you. It's not going to work for my husband, right? So it's like, find what exercise works for you. As long as you're out there and you're getting active and you're moving your body, that's not only doing things to help with your heart and your body, it's getting your blood flowing, it's getting things moving through your system, your digestive system, your gut health. Like just moving your body and not being sedentary all day long is great for so many things. Now I lost my train of thought. What I was going to go back to, but maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah, so that's just like a very, very high level. When you think of wellness, I feel like most people think of like what you eat and how you exercise and how you live, that sort of thing. There's also an aspect of mental health. And right now yesterday I just started my social media break. So I am taking a break from social media, except for just posting in my Facebook group that I have for my essential oils. But other than that, I'm just taking a complete break from social media. I'm not going on, I'm not posting, I'm not doing anything, just because my mental health needs a little bit of so there's also a mental health piece to that as well that we can go in and we'll touch on it at some point as well. But as far as like food and fitness and that sort of thing, which is what the majority of people think of, that's kind of how we approach it.
Yeah, but that's just the food and the fitness. You have other big
So
aspects. I mean, you
many
want to
things.
talk about wellness, you should
I should talk
include
about,
there's
yeah,
environmental,
I know. I was
because that's
actually thinking about
really,
that too.
really honestly for you, isn't that really what brought you, for the most part, into this world? I mean, I know you're
Well,
always health conscious, but
non-toxic
really,
living, yeah. So like that's kind of like, we were always health conscious. We worked out a ton. I always worked out my entire life. So fitness wasn't new for me, but like the focus on what you put in your body is just a portion of it. So that is, Jessica, you are correct. That is something else I should mention, is what you put on your body is just as important and can be a huge contributing factor to what you put in your body. Um, Especially being, and if you're an American listening to this, there are so many things that are legal to put into products like skincare, shampoos, conditioners, lotions, body wash, soap, all those things that are banned in other countries.
Mhm.
They haven't updated the guidelines for 50 years, I think. 50 some years. They haven't taken a look at what we put into our products and how things affect our hormones, that sort of thing. Especially as women, there are so many things that go into these personal care products that
Yeah.
are harming us. And I have friends that they're like, I'm doing all the right things, I'm exercising, I'm eating healthy, and I just can't lose that last 5 pounds that I know I really need to lose. And it's like, well, what products are you using? Right? Are you using toxic dryer sheets that are full of scents? Are you using laundry detergent that's full of scents, parfum and fragrance is over 3,000 different chemicals that make up the fragrance.
And they're all pretty much endocrine
Yeah, they're all
disruptors.
endocrine disruptors. They're endocrine hormones. You have so many women with thyroid issues now. That
Mhm.
plays a huge part. What we put on our bodies, and I think people forget that our body is our largest organ, and it absorbs everything we put on it. It's not a barrier; it is a carrier. So, and then that goes into our body, and then our liver has to filter through all of those things. Our liver and our kidneys, and all of it just gets into our bloodstream, and there's just so many repercussions of what we put on our bodies, as in addition to what we put in our bodies and that sort of thing, that I think people
Mhm.
need to take into consideration. So I always tell people to flip over the label and read the label. We use only plant-based products in our home, as far as personal care products and cleaners.
Mhm.
If it has a warning label that says, if ingested or get in your eyes, call 911, then it's probably not something you should be putting on your floors and letting your kids and your dog lick and your kids crawl all over and walk all over and whatnot. So we just use
Mhm.
things that's like, hey, if my kid I was using this cleaner, I would feel okay with them using the cleaner, because I know it's not going to harm them, because it's made from plants. So I just always tell
Mhm.
people to consider that too, because personal care products are something people don't think a lot of, and it really can be detrimental to our health. So
For sure, for sure.
yeah. So what
Yeah,
about you?
so I'll just say, like, 10 years ago, I would have told you I was, oh yeah, I'm pretty healthy. And I was, by all means, like, if you measured my blood serum levels of things, I'm totally healthy.
Mhm.
And but I think about like how I felt then. And for the most part, I did feel good, but like my energy level sucked. My level of like joy in life was, I mean, it was up and down. I mean, I wasn't like miserable all the time, but like battling that little bit of anxiety and depression and just general unease or whatever. So, and then also like my digestive health was terrible, and I weighed nothing. Like I was, after having Charlie, I got down to 109 pounds, and mind you, I'm 5'9".
Mhm.
So I was skin and bones. And so, I just look and I remember thinking back, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty healthy. I make mostly all my own food. I hardly ever eat out to fast food. I don't really eat a lot of candy or anything like that. So generally, and I would say that, that's a good start, right?
Yeah.
But as I've gone through this journey, um, it's really evolved into, I mean, some would say I'm extreme, but I would say, this is what we all need to be working towards this. Because all I really say for health and wellness, if we want to talk about diet, which is the starting point, if you ask me.
Yep, agree.
Is like you said, and I'll just kind of double down on it, is getting back to real food. So my nutrition business is called Real Food Revolution for a reason. If you can just start there, just start with getting back to real food. And like you said, real food is meat and vegetables. If it comes from the earth, then that's real food. Yep. So the more you can get close to that, and so don't be fooled by, food labels. Stop reading food labels. I remember my mom, trying to work with me with Charlie's diet and stuff, and she'd be all excited because she found something at the store that was labeled gluten-free. And I'm like, no. And she's like, what? I thought that's what you were. And I'm like, technically, yes, we are gluten-free, but that is not what the diet is. We do the GAPS diet. It's totally different. And just because it says gluten-free does not mean that it is healthy. So, stop looking at food labels, stop looking at the nutritional labeling. I honestly don't give a rat's ass about the amount of carbs or fats or proteins in something. Look at that ingredient list.
Yep.
Every single, I will spend tons of time at the store. Now I know what I want to buy for the most part. If I'm looking at a new product though, all right, every once in a while I'll look at other products just to see, look at that label. If it's got something in it that you're not familiar with, there might be something like guar gum, right? Some people would say that that's natural and fine. In my world, no. That's an additive, it's a thickener, it's actually disruptive for digestion. Okay, so, but it's all baby steps. So just start getting back to real foods. But to take it a little bit further, I came from a background of the GAPS diet. So, I would have said, yeah, I'm healthy because I'm absent of disease, right? I think a lot of people feel that way. I'm absent of disease. I don't have to take medications. I hardly ever get sick. I'm healthy as a horse.
Right.
But we look at right now with everything going on with COVID right now, what's one of the most common factors, like one of the biggest prevailing factors in how you recover from COVID, who does poorly when they get sick? It's those that are metabolically unhealthy.
Right.
Or they have deficiencies. So, it's not just the absence of disease. And even those that hardly ever get sick, that can be an indicator. If you never get sick, that can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. It can mean that you are actually generally so inflamed that your body doesn't respond when you come across something that is going to make you sick, because it's so busy taking care of everything else. So I don't know. I start with real food. I guess I would say first start asking why, like, right? Like ask everything, just start questioning everything. Right. But get back to real food. Pay attention to your body, like really, really get reconnected with your body. Start paying attention to all those things that you think are normal. They're not normal.
Right.
They're not. The headache you get every once in a while, oh, everybody gets a headache. It's just, PMS or whatever. No, you're not supposed to get a headache.
No.
You're not supposed to be really gassy. That's not supposed to be, that's not normal digestion.
And it kills me when I hear people say, oh, I really like this, but it makes me super gassy. I'm like, then you probably shouldn't eat it. If it makes you gassy, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, for the most part, yes. Now, I will give a caveat to that is as you go through your healing journey, there's times you'll get worse, right? Absolutely. So as you introduce things like probiotic foods and your microbiome starts to balance out and you get some die-off, you're going to have things like gas and stuff. So you got to kind of get through that period of adjustment.
The same thing goes with when you switch to using non-toxic products, right? So you get those candles and you get those plugins and those warmer things out of your house, those bar warmer things out of your house that just have a bunch of fragrance. Your body actually goes through like a detox process, and it takes a good 30 days or more, I'd say even more, to completely get that out of your system. So there are going to be some changes where you're gonna be like, this is making me worse. It's like, no, it's a process. Your body is trying to get rid of those things. It's gotten so acclimated to it, it has to get it out of your body. So
yeah basically exactly it's kind of it's kind of been storing all this crap in you
Yeah.
until it could finally deal with it. So when you start taking that burden off, it starts dealing with those things.
That's a
And so
great
now
way
you
to
start
put it.
detoxing them out, right? And it happens with all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, like, I mentioned having my copper IUD taken out recently. Well, I felt like crap.
Yep.
But and it's a roller coaster of healing, but you start really feeling better. But that first period of when your body starts dumping all those toxins, you feel like crap for a while. So yeah, make sure you get through that period. But those things that you think are normal, let me tell you, they're not. We are meant to have clear skin. We're meant to have energy throughout the day. We're meant to you don't have to be happy all the time, but you should be relatively emotionally stable, right? You're going to have ups and downs of life, but for the most part, you should have a pretty stable emotional state. So those are some things I want to pay attention to. Fitness is always going to be a part of things because we are meant to move.
We're not meant to sit
No,
all day long.
And I guess that's the thing. Like, as you go through figuring out what's healthy, I would say my philosophy is think back to how we are intended to live. Get back to nature, right? We are an animal at the end of the day. Like, we have interfered with the way that we're supposed to live as a human so much that's why we're all so sick. We're disconnected to, how I keep saying I want to go back to tribal living. Like, I feel like we are supposed to be like in a tribal community, right?
Well, there's still those out there, right? Those nomadic tribes, and they talk about, I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but they're still out there living great lives.
Right. But we've kind of messed with all of that. And so now we have these different expectations. We have these values that really don't align with us spiritually, if you were to connect spiritually with yourself. So it's a journey, and I'm working my way towards getting back to every day a little bit closer to what nature intended, right? Working out, I think movement is very important, but as part of, like, right now, so go back again to my copper IUD removal, I knew with doing that, I was going to be going through a dumping phase and that my body would be having a lot of a burden at that time. So I didn't want to add to that stress level. So I've been doing yoga, something a little bit more gentle. You could do walking as your physical movement.
Absolutely.
So there's different stages in your life that you really have to adjust. And we call it in our NTA training, they call it bio-individuality. So you talked about not everybody can tolerate the different vegetables. You might have nightshade issues. That comes down to bio-individuality. So we all have our different bio-individual issues and needs, and even throughout your life. So you're going to have different nutritional needs when you're pregnant. You're going to have different nutritional needs if you're training for a triathlon, right? Just those things to keep in mind. So when we talk about fitness, right now I'm doing yoga, but pretty soon here, I'm going to get back to lifting weights and on occasionally doing cardio. Now I run on the thin side, so I stick more with resistance training for the most part. But I do like to get a little bit of cardio in just to make sure I'm still keeping like healthy lungs and cardiovascular system, getting the blood flowing, keeping lymph flowing. But just, I feel like there's a huge, because of people tend to be misguided in this world a lot. And so it's calorie deficit and work your ass off. And that's how you're going to get thin, right? That's the mentality.
Well, and it's all about thin, right? It's all about the size that you are. That's what especially as women, that's what we've been taught is it's about your size. And it's not. There's so much more to it than that.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you said that too, because we kind of rolled right over that point, right? Yeah. And we maybe should have started there too.
Right.
Is healthy living is not about your size. Now, if you are overweight, as you get healthier, what's going to happen is that weight, that size is going to normalize. You're going to get to where you're supposed to be. But it won't happen until you get into a healthy state.
Yep.
Because what's happening with a lot of women is they're stressing their bodies out in a calorie deficit and then working out really, really hard. And you might lose some weight at first, right? It might be a lot of just water weight that you lose at first, right? Or, generally, yes, you're going to do a little bit better when you start cutting out candy bars and chips, right?
Right. Soda.
Yeah. When you cut that out, yeah, you're going to be doing a whole lot better, right? But you're going to hit a wall. And the reason for that wall is that internally, you are not healthy. Your body is stressed out. And for women a lot, it tends to be that endocrine system.
Yep.
And when you go and work out really, really hard, you're putting a lot of stress on your body. And what your body does is pump out cortisol. And now you are effing up your whole endocrine system.
Yep.
Everything's out of balance. And your body starts to store fat because it needs to put it somewhere. It needs to deal with this stress and these hormones. And it's constantly in a state of fight or flight. So you're not going to lose the weight. So you need to come back to, I want to be healthy. And what is healthy? Healthy is having stabilized energy, feeling well throughout the day, having good digestion. Digestion is huge. That is like the number one thing. Is probably the best indicator, if you ask me.
Yep, I agree.
Of your health status. If you're going poop once or twice a day, and it's easy.
What's your poop look like? You can go. You can search it online. What's your poop look like, and it'll tell you what's healthy poop and what's not healthy poop.
Yep, there's the Bristol chart, right? Yep. So, if you're pooping good, you're doing all right, right, for the most part. The other indicator to me would be energy in general, right? So those are the things, and then you also mentioned, that sort of mental state is huge too. So I get into, and then there's the toxic environment, but even toxic environment meaning like the people you surround yourself with, the media you're consuming, how you talk to yourself. So these are all things I continue to work on. Mm-hmm. They're all very important. It's funny to me, you mentioned you're doing a social media break, which I love, and I need to do the same. And I'm working on it. I'm cutting it down bit by bit, but I need to do better about, using it more as a tool, as we talked about in our last episode. But it's funny, I saw, do you follow Kelly Brogan at all? Dr. Kelly Brogan?
Maybe. I don't think so, though.
Okay. I love her, but she just sent out her email newsletter or whatever. And she has been, I think it's been a couple months, she said now, that she's gone without a smartphone.
Nice.
So she's got like a picture of her flip phone that she has. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I've been saying for like years, I want to go back to a flip phone.
Yeah. I know Colin was just saying the other day, come on, bring back the Nokia, right? Remember the Nokia?
No, that's what I keep saying. Yes. I want my Nokia that I can change out the faceplate and play Snake, and like you have to type out words when you text by like hitting the number 3 times or whatever. Right. But I mean, that's the other thing I've worked on recently. So, again, health is a journey.
It is.
So by a lot of people's standards, they might think Jessica, you're totally healthy. What are you doing? You don't need to worry about this stuff, but it's comes in stages. So like you can always improve, right? So, one of the things I've been working on lately is I've been turning off my Wi-Fi at night. I know you've done this for a long time. I'm finally like made it part of my routine at night. I turn off my whole Wi-Fi, and I would love to at some point invest in one of the Wi-Fi blockers.
Somavedic, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to do a whole podcast about Wi-Fi and then sleep and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I'm trying to work on that a bit and trying to reduce my exposure to EMFs and things. And this summer I'll get out more and do more grounding. I want to try and go hiking barefoot and, trying to get out more on a regular basis to just get out and get some fresh air every day when it's not raining and stuff. But just, I just want to say, just like get back to a natural state as much as you can.
Yeah.
That's my biggest take on everything. It's like, what were humans doing 2,000 years ago? That's probably a good place to look like for being healthy.
And that's like optimal, right? It's like there's
Yeah.
always like finding that balance. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to always be all or nothing. Like you were talking about,
No.
Jessica doesn't drink coffee. And this weekend at the ocean, she had some coffee, right? And so it's like it doesn't always have to be all or nothing. And I think that's another thing sometimes people forget is that there's balance too. If you're going out with friends, it's okay if you want to have something that's not typically something you eat, or you want to have like a cocktail, make a smart choice on your cocktail. But it's okay if you want to have a cocktail every now and then. It's just don't make
Mhm.
it something that turns into a habit then, right?
Well,
So
and also I would say, like, in those scenarios, pay attention.
mhm.
Like,
How do you feel after that?
I drank my coffees down at the beach and I didn't really feel that great. And I'm like, oh yeah, I really don't want to do this to myself.
Hmm.
And so you kind of can start paying attention to, okay, what's more, or that my body doesn't hurt at the end of the day. And you can start making those decisions for yourself. No, it's not an all or nothing. And it, like I said, it's a journey. Like you're not going to all of a sudden be living this super clean life. Like you're going to progress towards that. But what I would say is when you do try to make some changes, stick to something for a good period of time.
Yeah.
I am not someone that believes in cheat meals.
Hmm.
I think that's the dumbest shit I ever heard. Sorry. But like, I hate cheat meals. Like, who are you cheating? You're cheating yourself. Like, do you really want to say to yourself, I'm cheating on me?
Right.
No. If you're going to be eating healthy, like eat healthy. Now, if you find yourself in a birthday party situation and you want to be able to be part of the whole thing, the celebration, then yeah, partake at that time.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how you feel. Or honestly, if you don't want to, what I do, you have to be willing to kind of be sort of an outsider to some degree, but like I bring my own food everywhere, or I make sure I eat before I go out, or I choose certain things when I go out. But no, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but there are certain things like pay attention to what does really treat you poorly. A lot of people really are, I don't even like saying gluten sensitive. I think our grains are really, this is another topic too.
Yeah.
I I I don't know how much it's gluten sensitivity as it is just really bad grains that we have.
It's
We
different
don't
here.
process. Yeah, I mean, over the years, the way they've been treated, the way they're grown, and then on top of it, how they're not processed properly and
Right.
and you know actually made more digestible.
Right.
So I think everybody has some sort of level of gluten sensitivity.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't call it gluten sensitivity. I'd call it grain sensitivity, honestly. Like,
It is. And
um,
grains here are different than, like, they call it heritage wheat, right? I think too. Or einkorn wheat is going to be different than traditional wheat or flour you're going to buy at the store. And sourdough is even better, right? Because sourdough is
mhm,
basically fermented. And so
yeah,
it's better for you. So if you need to have like bread or something, make your own sourdough or find a local bakery that makes it. Don't buy the sourdough that's packaged at the store because that still has a
yeah,
bunch of junk in it. But you know,
yeah.
it's different than what we can buy at the store as
Mhm,
far as bread
yeah.
and
And that
pasta.
makes me think of another thing too. Like, if there is something that you really love to eat, Google it. There are alternatives, or start figuring out how to work with some of these alternative ingredients. I call it alternative ingredients. I just say real food ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I sweeten with honey and maple syrup.
Yep.
I never use sugar. You find ways to work with it. You find recipes that use those and you learn. You might make some mistakes along the way, but I figured out how to make a pretty darn good chocolate chip cookie.
Yep.
So, and you start to learn the products in the stores that are cleaner, that have better ingredients in them. But just start looking at those ingredients. Get back to, just because it says fat, if it says fat free, just read that as chemical shitstorm, right? Like,
Right. Because
you
it's
know,
fat free, it's gonna have 1,000 more ingredients in it to make it
to
taste
make it
better,
to make it
right?
palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if people drank purely fat-free milk that didn't have all the additives in it, they'd be like, this is the worst thing ever. I mean, it's already bad with all the additives in it, but then
Hmm.
without the additives in it, it's even worse, and nobody would drink that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's terrible. And, things like dairy's a whole nother topic too.
Yeah.
I just finished my glass of raw whole milk.
Yeah, we
Um,
got some raw milk in the area, so we got that for the kids the other day.
nice. Good. Yeah. But that's another thing I think sometimes I forget how many people don't even know. They're like, what's raw?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh yeah, I've been in this world a while, like this my hippie world, I call it.
And it's a
But
process. It's a process. And just like Jessica said, like, don't get discouraged. Don't quit after a week. You're like, this isn't working for me. You have to give it time and focus
Mhm.
on one thing at a time. If you're like, okay, I want to change the way my family eats because I don't like that we buy a lot of frozen foods or prepackaged meals or that sort of thing, then just focus on, okay, we're going to try to make, if you're eating 7 packaged meals for dinner a week, we're going to try to cut that down to 3. And I'm going to make a homemade meal with grass-fed meat and vegetables. And it's so simple. I think people think we need these elaborate meals, and it doesn't have to be. Just grab a piece,
Yeah.
grab a steak, grab some chicken or fish, and then have a vegetable on the side. It doesn't have to be, and your kids will get used to it. My daughter was the pickiest eater, and we didn't know any better when she was little. We just gave her, because we're like, she just needs to eat. So we just gave her chicken nuggets, and my
Mhm.
heart breaks now feeding her like those chicken nuggets and stuff. And I'm just gray food, we call it gray food, gray and brown food, and they'll get used to it, right? Like,
Mhm.
don't think that they won't, because they will. Their palates will change. They will get used to it. So
Yeah, really, honestly, it
start
just has to
small.
be you staying strong enough
Yeah, and
to
don't bring
kind
it
of
into
get
the
past that
house.
period. Yeah. Don't bring it in your house. And like I said, stick with it, right? So I always say commit to something for 30 days because your palate will start to change. And I feel like 30 days is a pretty good, easy number to
Agree.
kind of stick with. You really should. There's a number out there for, I think it's like 180 days that your liver completely turns over its cells. So like you have a whole new liver basically. So some will say like if you're starting a new supplement or something, you wait 100, I think it's 180 days or something like that.
Oh.
But I say 30 days. Like in
Yeah.
30 days, you won't really want those things anymore. So, and one of the greatest starting places I feel like is if you drink soda, cut out soda. Like pick
So
something
bad.
like this is the worst.
It
Is a great start. And I'm talking, I would say even diet soda is worse than regular soda. So if
is. Oh
you,
man, I was so addicted to
diet
diet
is
soda. I was so addicted to it.
I never got into the diet. I'm glad I didn't.
Well, my dad
But
was a Coca-holic, so my dad drank so much Coca-Cola, and so then
yeah.
I didn't like it, and so I started drinking diet. And I mean, me and a couple girlfriends, oh man, we'd just go through that diet soda. But
I was a
now
Dr.
I'm like,
Pibb or Dr. Pepper girl.
oh yeah,
Dr. Pepper, Mr. Pibb. Those were my go-tos.
that one.
That and pizza rolls. So, pizza rolls.
Pizza
Yeah.
rolls. My dad always had pizza rolls.
But
Oh man,
start small. Find. My first thing I probably did years ago was cut out soda, and then from there it was starting to make my own meals more. And like Tiffany said, does not have to be complicated. I will tell you, I would say I'm relatively lazy. Okay, lazy, or what do you want to call it? Efficient. I don't know,
yes.
but I literally, like you said, I just cook some meat, add some salt and pepper. Every once in a while I may make a sauce or something, but for the most part it's literally just a piece of meat with some seasoning and some vegetables with butter.
Yeah.
Like it does not have to be complicated. And you can, my favorite thing, cook in bulk. And you can just eat the same thing for a few days, depending on your family size.
Animals
But like,
do it, right? If animals can eat the same thing their entire life, we can eat the same thing for a few days in a row.
shoot, there's some people that have had such serious health issues. There's the one podcaster I listened to, Michaela.
Oh, Michaela Peterson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson's daughter.
She went pure, like she only ate, I think it was lamb or something for like 2 years. Like
her RA and stuff. She had childhood RA, and
it's the only thing that didn't make her flare up.
Yep.
So if someone can eat just one type of meat for 2 years, like I think you can go 30 days without something, and eventually you won't want it anymore. Like I couldn't stand the thought of drinking soda now. And so just be gentle with yourself, but start making those changes and stick with them for a good period of time.
Awesome. I think that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
If you guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you click subscribe, leave comments, share it with your family and friends. We would love to make sure that more people are hearing about our new podcast and enjoying it, because we are really excited for some of the upcoming topics that we have in the next few episodes. So we appreciate y'all being here.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye.